And my friend, who is a cop, looks at my ex-wife's oldest brother and says, "Man, your mom's cleavage is looking real respectable today."
Oh shit! Seriously?
Yeah. And granted, in the scale of like wedding day transgressions, like 0 to Zacco, that's closer to 0 than it is to Zacco. Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Menage-A-Pod, the hysterical comedy podcast about sex, dating, relationships, and everything in between. I'm TJ, and as always, I'm joined by, what are you today? I don't even know.
Really?
I'm unprepared. You're just lovely. You're my friend. You're my
That's so nice.
My buddy, my pal.
I mean, I'll take all of those things.
How are you, Jenna?
I gotta be honest, currently I'm just hot. This dog, I have, for those of you that can't see, Miles
Which is everybody.
Yep. You.
For those of you who can't see.
You could see me.
I choose not to look at you.
Those of you in the back that can't see me. That's rude. I have Miles sitting on my lap right now because he's extra clingy since Coop passed away. He is like a fucking heating pad. He's so hot. Like he's hot right now and he's sitting on my lap and I feel like I'm sweaty.
Yeah, he's a wreck. When I got here, he was shaking. So I laid down on my back on the floor and let him get on my chest, which he did. It was very cute. But then he just shook like a leaf the entire time.
He's a maniac.
That poor guy.
I don't even understand it. It's not even like he's lived in this house now for, I don't know, 3 years, maybe 4 years. Who knows? I've lost count. But long enough
2
where
years.
he should feel, No. I've had it. Well, in this house, this current house.
Well,
I meant with me. He's lived with me as a mom for 4 years, 3 to 4 years. So like at this point, you think he'd be comfortable and settled in already and not so worried. I don't know what the fuck his problem is.
The fact that he's shaken
Grow
up.
a pair of balls, bro.
He's shaken up by new people. And the reality is,
and you're not
new people running in and out of this place all the time.
Funny. Because of all of our guests, he means.
Yes, that's exactly what I meant.
Yeah, duh. Anyway, so that's it. Other than that, I'm good. I'm leaving tomorrow to go see the beau for a couple days.
And by the beau, you don't mean my friend Beau, you mean your boyfriend.
Yeah.
That's fair.
Yeah.
If you were taking a large trip just to drive to the south suburbs to hang out with my buddy,
that is a pretty fucking big hike for me.
It is.
Yeah.
You'd rather go to the East Coast than drive 40 miles south.
Yeah, I'd rather get on a plane and go somewhere where it's like really pretty and, fall-like out there. It's gonna be really pretty out there. So we'll see. It should be nice. Well, not so nice. He's having surgery, so like I'm gonna have to be stuck in a hospital.
Well, we'll miss you,
but
kind of.
Well, I think the only person that's really gonna miss me is Miles.
I'll miss you. I promise.
Oh, you will. That's so nice of you. Thank you.
Whenever I can't see your lovely face on demand, it breaks my heart.
That's fine. I'll send you selfies.
Oh, will you please?
Yeah.
You're the best.
Yeah, I mean, I do what I can.
All right, guys. Well,
wait, how are you? What's new with you?
I'm good. Life is good. I'm just living the dream, as they say. I actually saw Joker last night, which, guys, if you're coming to our podcast recommendations, which I doubt any of you are.
You should.
You should, because I actually have a couple ideas that I didn't tell Jen about, but this just popped into my head, so I'm going to do it now. So Joker, go see it.
Surprise, everyone.
Not a big superhero movie fan, but I would argue it's not that. It's more kind of just like the musings of mental health and what it's like to be mentally ill in America.
Yeah.
And I'm still not 100% sure if the movie was like great or not, but Joaquin Phoenix's performance as Joker, one of the best acting performances I've ever seen. It was hands down incredible.
I believe that he has this incredible ability to go like really dark.
Yeah, he channels something really deep inside to get there. So there's
Trauma.
that. Yeah, probably. Yeah, any performer, whether it's comedians or actors, whatever, a lot of them have some fucked up shit inside that pushed them to that sort of career choice, I think. And then the other thing, which I didn't tell Jenna about, and I don't even know why, no one may care or not, but I realized that, so I'm a huge music fan. I don't think I've talked about it a ton on the podcast, but I like love music and I'm always like looking for new stuff. I build playlists all the time. So what I think I'm going to do is every week I'm going to make a playlist of like 20 songs and I'm going to put the link in the show notes. And then anyone who wants to get some new music and listen to my music,
can I make a suggestion on that? Can it be themed to
Absolutely,
the episode?
100%.
So like last one, I don't know how many goes to, there's probably a ton.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, even it can be like loosely themed, but a lot of it is just like, I listen to other podcasts that do recommendations that are not even remotely related to their podcast. It's just like, hey, we're people who are interesting and we like interesting things. So here's an interesting we like. Maybe you will like it too. So who knows?
I mean, I got to be honest. I think I have to put this dog down. The thing is like, I feel like themed would be really good.
Yeah, but I just don't know how.
Well, yeah, it could be loose. You're right. It could be loosely themed.
We have 3-song ghosting playlist.
You'd be surprised what you can do because I've looked up some really funny titles on Spotify.
Have you?
And they have some really good ones. I have faith in you, especially with your extensive knowledge. Oh, look, now he needs to get up on your lap.
That's not happening, buddy.
No, he's such a maniac. So anyway, I think that's not a bad idea. I'm into it.
Okay, sweet. So I'm going to do that. So be on the lookout.
You know who could help you with that?
Who's that?
Tabitha.
Oh, yeah. She's good too. I've actually contributed to a couple of Tab's playlists before. Yeah. Before we get into our episode today, which is how to get the second date, we're going to do 2 quick things. Going to do a quick ad read, tell you again about our contest, and we have an interesting piece of banter that I think you guys are going to be interested in. Today's episode is brought to you by T-Box 2019, 12 bars of Christmas. It's right around the corner on December 14th. So come join us at the world's largest and longest running bar crawl. It's time to get dressed up in your favorite holiday costumes and come party with thousands of your friends. This year's theme is meme. There's going to be contests, swag, drink tickets, great specials, bands, celeb appearances, and more. Make sure if you're going to go, you go to tbox.org/menage. That is tbox.org/menage, or type the code menage in to save $5 off ticket prices.
Yeah, fun fact, guys. We found out that even though the theme is
meme.
Meme.
Hashtag meme.
You don't actually have to dress as a meme. Apparently, it's just, what did they say? Like, whatever.
Yeah, just like holiday
costume. You
dress like Santa, dress as an ugly sweater, whatever you want to do. Yeah. Does not have to be a meme. There's just going to be like, I think, meme decor.
Although, that could be pretty awesome, and they might want to explore that. And honestly, if you want to stand out and meet your, like, new significant other there, I say you do something that's a meme. That's a thought. That is a very creative conversation starter, because also you're not going to be like the 10th person in that ugly sweater.
In addition to that, we just want to remind you guys again about our contest. So you need to be submitting your best ghosting stories. The best submission is going to win a pair of tickets, and all submitted stories are going to be read on the air in an upcoming episode. And the second way you can win is by writing a review of the podcast on Apple Podcasts. This is super important, so make sure you do that for us. Write a review on Apple Podcasts, 5 stars only, if you please. Take a screenshot of that review and then send it to us through Instagram DM at Menage-A-Podcast, or through email at menagepod3@gmail.com. The winner will be chosen at random and announced on the air during our September 2nd episode. Back to the good stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know how familiar you guys are with some of our past episodes, but we've had
you should be very familiar.
Super familiar.
Honestly, loyal fans.
But these guys I'm about to mention, they're kind of way back.
Well, some of them
they are. Yeah. So there are 3 comedians that collaborate together in their creative endeavors, and 2 of them are actually best friends. So Sean Ely and Corey Wagner of Number 6 with Cheese. And we
loved them.
We did.
What was their episode? It was Long Distance.
Long Distance, yeah, Going the Distance.
Yep.
And then Zach O'Ryan, which is Corey's high school best friend. He's a host and producer of the roast battle show Burnt at the Laugh Factory. Those 3 guys host a podcast called The Unemployables Pod. I generally don't plug other podcasts on our show because you need to be listening to this first and foremost.
Yeah, still listen to ours.
For sure. But as a guy, I know a lot of our listeners are female. These 3 guys are 3 of the funniest dudes out there, and I listen to their podcast pretty religiously. And this week, instead of doing their normal format, which is just general advice, they did a play-by-play of 2 weekends ago in Toledo, where Corey married his longtime girlfriend, Kylie. I sent this episode to Jenna because I was literally dying. This is my car just cackling and choking. I was laughing so hard. So I sent the episode to Jenna. I was like, please listen to this. You've got to. She listened. She's got thoughts.
I have so many thoughts. I don't even really know where to begin. I'm just going to give you like a quick, this is going to surprise nobody, but maybe I start with Zacho. Sweet, sexy, muscular, tall.
He's Zacho. A force of nature.
You know, I love you, buddy, but I would have kicked you out of my wedding. You were so lucky that Corey is so nice, but like his wife, I would have been like, fuck you get out of the wedding in the nicest way possible. For those that haven't listened, basically, Zacho, as much as we love you, was acting like, you know, a 12-year-old kid the whole time and like being like disruptive and funny, right? Because you have a bunch of comedians in the group who are like, apparently, you know, it turned into one giant weekend-long bit, which I can imagine being really, really, really funny as a guest. But if you are the one getting married and like things have to kind of flow and function,
it can add some stress to the process.
I would murder you. As much as I love you, I would murder you.
Murder?
Yes.
Yeah.
So,
and Zacho is a force of nature. So
he's a big dude, you guys.
He's a 6'5" monster. So Jenna, if you're trying to murder him, you better pack a lunch.
Well, I'll have a posse.
Okay.
It's fine. It's fine.
Did you say a pussy?
A posse?
Oh,
well, I have one of those. But no, I will just get him drunk.
If you're trying to take over Zacho, you might need both. Your posse and your pussy.
This is true. This is true. I feel like he probably gets a lot of the latter.
Fair.
So, anyway, that was like my favorite thing though, was like all weekend he was just kind of like being a pain. And they were so drunk. And here's what's so funny is that in my wedding, I specifically had a conversation with my ex-husband, who obviously not my ex-husband at the time. I remember saying to him, because we had gone to a wedding of one of his good friends, and there was some drama at that wedding between one of the groomsmen and one of the women who was married, who was in the bridal party. They hooked up while they went upstairs, hooked up in a room while the husband was downstairs at the reception. So there was a lot of drama going on. Then like a big fight broke out and the cops were called. And I just looked at my fiance at the time and I was like, dude, when we get married, none of those shenanigans are going to happen. Not only am I not going to be okay with it, but I guarantee my father will put an end to that so fast with your friends. And like, if you don't want to be embarrassed, don't do it. That was my other big takeaway for us from the episode was like, man, oh man, Corey, you are super lucky to be marrying such a saint, because she handled that probably better than a lot of women I know would, because like they couldn't even get through like the rehearsal and stuff.
Am I out of line saying that I wish that someone would have ruined my wedding?
No, but like, was your wedding crazy like that? Mine was pretty, like we had a good time. We took a bottle of champagne afterwards, and we like robbed the bar at my wedding, took bottles that were left over, walked, because it was in Savannah, so you can drink on the streets. We walked down the streets with giant bottles of champagne, and then the after party was in a drag club.
A drag club?
Yeah, we watched like it was like a dance floor downstairs, and then upstairs was like a drag show. Yeah, so there I am sitting in my like gorgeous wedding dress and my veil, and we're watching a drag show. It was incredible. We had so much fun. It was a famous one. I can't think of what the name of it is, but like if any of you guys have read that Midnight in the Garden of Good and Evil book that was based in Savannah, it was in that book. There was like a famous person in the book there. So
I actually have a pretty good story from my wedding day, though, that their podcast reminded me of. So I'm not a rager. I mean, I party, but I'm not like these dudes can house some booze. Like they get after it.
And they were so high. Yeah. So it wasn't even just like they were drunk. They were drunk and high.
And they were so high that at the rehearsal dinner, Corey had to speak. And he got flustered trying to get everybody together. And just so they didn't think he was stupid, he just said, I'm just really high. That was the best part.
Like my parents had been like, what the fuck? So like even her family's pretty cool.
He said her mom was not pleased.
Yeah.
And was like, this is why you don't smoke pot.
Totally.
But at my wedding, my best man picked me up first thing in the morning with a pint of Rumpelmans and 4 22-ounce bombers of
Rumpelmans?
Yes.
What are you, like a 24-year-old woman?
A
21-year-old woman?
It's 100 proof. You get wrecked off that shit.
Oh, that's the kind of thing that I used to drink like before I knew better.
Yeah. So he comes and he brings the pint of Rumpelmans and these bombers of this 11.4% alcohol double IPA. So I had probably 4 shots of Rumpelmans and 2 of these giant beers before my ceremony. Just kind of take the edge off. Everyone else there was a groomsman who's actually a police officer, and he's a big partier, and this is where it gets great. So my ex-wife came from a big family. She's got 5 brothers. They're all very close-knit, super like homeschool Christian conservative. And several of her brothers were in my wedding. So we're in the limo between the reception and the ceremony. We're headed to the reception. And my friend, who is a cop, looks at my ex-wife's oldest brother and says, man, your mom's cleavage is looking real respectable today.
Oh shit. Seriously?
Yeah. And granted, in the scale of like wedding day transgressions, like 0 to Zacco, that's closer to 0 than it is to Zacco.
That should be like our new measurement scale.
Yeah. If you're at a place that things are supposed to be going smoothly, but it's getting like rowdy and turnt, that's the Zacco scale.
Yeah.
So it wasn't that bad, but still, it's something I talked about throughout my marriage. But I was like, oh man, you remember when Chris said your mom's cleavage was great? Oh, what a fucking weirdo.
Oh, it's so weird. Yeah, none of that didn't happen, but Daniel kept trying to dance with my mom like inappropriately. And at one point, my dad looks at me and goes, what the fuck's up with that guy? And I just started laughing and I was like, oh, it's fine. You'll get used to him.
I have to say, you know, from their experience, it's so crazy. They'd said that there was 4 hours between the ceremony and the reception.
I've been to weddings like that before. I feel like Daniel's wedding was actually like that. There was a lot of time in between. So much time that we were able to go from Bridgeport back here north and then go back and drank in between. I think that's a new thing. I don't know. I never have seen that until then.
Well, but the thing that was different about them is they had a double-deckered party bus with almost 50 people on it. So
you're asking people to get wasted that way.
I know. I mean, just hearing the amount of booze that they consumed, being like,
how are they standing?
Like,
they're tanks.
So much so. And Corey and Zacco are big guys. Sean is a smaller dude.
Yeah.
Like, and he can handle it too. I mean, he's not quite as much. He was the more responsible of the group.
I love him so much. He was like such the mother hen, it sounded like, which is not an insult, Sean. I adore you. But he's not the mother hen.
He's the red rooster.
Oh, was that because he's a redhead?
And there was a wrestler called Red Rooster.
Okay.
So,
but I just really loved how like thoughtful he was. But he was also doing video all night, and I would love to get my hands on what that
absolutely.
is. As someone who wasn't there but heard it and is now like, what would it be, like an auditory spectator of sorts. And I want to see it though.
And it's not like they're like our best friends, but we're definitely friendly with them and we've gotten to know them a little bit. So I think.
Yeah. And he talked about his wedding on the episode. And I remember we said we were going to crash it.
Yeah. And
we should have crashed it. At that point, they were so fucking drunk, they wouldn't have even noticed.
Never. Yeah. And I run into them throughout Chicago. I actually saw them at the Pizza Summit 2 weekends ago. We're not doing this justice. If I can give you one piece of advice from this episode, it would be to listen to the Unemployables Pod, episode 31. It's called Wedding Bells. It's hysterical.
And maybe don't ever invite Zacco to your wedding.
That's fair.
Yeah, I think so too.
Yes. If you want to avoid having a 6'5" man child get like hammered and make your life difficult, do not do that.
But man, I would totally have him at a party.
Oh, for sure.
He would be so much fun at a party or at a club because apparently he dances. There's like apparently some fucking move that he does that is like his signature move. I don't know what that is. He didn't say it on the podcast, but I feel like he probably gets down. Don't you?
Yeah, I do 100%. Yeah. So
meet him at a club. Just don't take him to your wedding.
Follow those guys. Listen to that podcast. Check out their Instagrams. You can find it from their podcast, I'm sure. If you're ready to go into the topic.
Yeah.
Today we're talking about, as you've probably noticed, Jen and I are flying solo, no guest this week.
No guest.
We had a guest episode planned, but I had some work travel that was going to happen earlier this week, and it got canceled after we already rescheduled our guest. And since Jenna is traveling to go be with, not Bo, but her Bo.
My Bo.
We're going to fly just the two of us today. It's going to be a romantic. It's going to be a romantic.
You missed an opportunity to rhyme.
I don't ever miss opportunities to rhyme.
You just did.
That wasn't the right opportunity.
It wasn't? Okay. All right,
no.
Fine.
Okay, so we're going to talk about how to get the second date. What's that mean?
Yeah.
It means...
I love... When he brought this up to me, I was like, I'm sorry. You're asking me to talk about this?
Jenna's like I go on one date and then they go back.
I don't know.
Jenna's like, I go on one date.
the fuck out of me.
And then they go back to their home across the country and we see each other again a couple weeks later.
It's fine. I'm totally fine. Or I bone them and then they just, Well, Ooh. Yeah, then it becomes a booty call.
Which is fair.
Yeah.
Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to talk about some things you should do and some things you should not do. If you get that date, you've been, that hottie that you saw on Bumble or the person that you slid into their DMs on Instagram, you finally tricked them and confused them hard enough to agree to go out with you.
I feel like, why are you looking at me when you're saying that?
Because you're the only person in the room and I'm looking at who I'm speaking to.
Oh, I thought you were being very
accusatory. I can't look at our listeners, no. So whoever you've tricked into going on a first date with you, here's how you continue that ruse to get them to go on a second date with you.
Okay.
a lot of this is really self-explanatory and I think pretty common sense, but.
Well, I think the problem with this topic, like when we were talking about it, is that I actually am one of those people who believes that there shouldn't be any rules. And I mean, yeah, they're probably not
disagree.
like boning on a first date, but like one of the things people always say about not talking about on a first date is like past relationships. And I think we've talked about this in episodes prior, but I don't believe that because
I do.
You do? So I kind of like, if I'm at my age, like people are divorced, right? So a lot of people I'm going out with, I'd say 80% of the people, 75% of the people I go out with are divorced. I want to hear that story because I want to be able to kind of pick it apart in my brain. Like, I don't know. What does that mean? What does that mean about how you are? What does that mean about how she is? Why did it end? But it also kind of gives me a little bit of like an outlook into your psyche, right? Like if you're talking shit about your ex, I know that maybe you guys, I don't know, maybe you're not fully over that. I just feel like it's a conversation that can tell me so much more about you.
Which is why they shouldn't talk about it.
Well, if you're over it, like with
the
me, like
if
someone asks me, I'm happy to have that conversation, not in an aggressive way because I'm so over it.
But since the point is to get the second date, if you want a foolproof, get the second date, why would you want to discuss a topic that might bring up something that you're going to talk about in an inflammatory way?
What if someone asks? What if they're like, oh, you're divorced? Like, because, it'll come up in conversation. You're chatting and you're like,
It does, I guess. But I don't think in my experience I've ever had like at-length conversations about my dating past in a first date, like ever. That seems like so weird and out of bounds.
Because you talked to them for weeks beforehand and you already have had the conversation?
No, I don't think that's the case at all. I think that your mileage may vary with this as with anything else. As a rule of thumb, like me personally, you said, at our age, most people have pasts. Mm-hmm. If they haven't been married, they've been engaged, or they certainly have long relationships.
Yeah.
What they're going to tell you, I feel, is of very limited value because it's purely their side of it. And
well, also true, but I think you have to probably be pretty, I don't know what's the word I'm looking for, like an evolved human where you can also kind of read through it and think. I just kind of feel like I've heard so many stories at this point where, someone will tell me their version of it and I'll think, okay, it's probably somewhere in between this extreme, right? And then I can kind of have a better idea of them. I don't know, or of like their hot buttons. I think it also allows me to learn your hot buttons and if it's like something that I want to deal with.
I just think that
maybe it's too early because it's still a first date.
I think it's too early. Like second date, maybe third date, maybe. I just think avoiding topics on the first date that are kind of fraught with peril. We've talked on previous episodes about the fact that for a lot of people, first dates are very nerve-wracking and many of us are not our best versions of ourselves. So if you're already uncomfortable, you're already a little anxious, maybe you're having some panic or whatever, do you really want to get into things that are like difficult conversations? And that's just for some people, maybe it works out perfectly. But I just think if you're going to go out and have a great night, say you spend 3 hours with someone, 4 hours with someone, and they're like, oh, tell me about your divorce. And then you end up going into a half-hour thing about your divorce. Yeah.
It also probably depends on how much booze you've had.
That's
which is
true.
Probably also a no-no.
I just look at my dates and tell them how pretty they are over and over again.
See, the thing is with the booze thing, I bet you do.
You are so pretty.
And then
can I tell you?
Like,
no,
lose.
You know what you got to do?
What? What does a woman do?
Guys.
You are so pretty. That would be so fucking weird.
Oh no, it works. So this is my biggest misdirect. If you want,
you're the king of those.
If you want to give a good compliment,
ladies, listen up.
If you want to give a good compliment on the first date, you don't want to interrupt people. As a rule, interrupting's not super polite, and doing that on a first date's obviously not going to win you a lot of points. Mm-hmm. But if you've gotten to a point, a couple hours into the evening, where it's going well, you've had some drinks, maybe a dinner or whatever, the conversation's good. Wait till there's a moment that it seems like it doesn't fit. They're talking about something, but it's low value. Whatever. Just stop and say, I'm really sorry to interrupt you, but it just like caught me off guard. How gorgeous you are.
Vomit. You just made me vomit in my mouth. Seriously.
I'm giving away all my secrets.
Although
that does work.
Yes, it does. Yes, it's funny that you say that because I find that's a good filler for filler for conversation too.
Compliments?
Yeah, 100%. Don't you think?
Yeah, I think that
even in a relationship, I find that an I love you will do the same thing. So once you've been through it, and you're in love with someone and you're in a relationship, that when there's a lull in conversation and you just kind of look at them, you're like, I love you.
Right.
It's the same 100%. Idea. Yeah. or it gets you out of a lot of things that you don't want to talk about.
Which is also a good thing.
Yeah.
So this is a little bit debatable. You see already there's a bit of a chasm between me and Jenna and how we see this particular issue. But I think there are a couple things that we can agree on a first date you do not want to do if you can avoid it.
Like what?
Don't be late.
Yeah. Oh God. Yeah. That is my biggest pet
if you're gonna, we live in the Chicagoland area. There's obviously a lot of traffic. Things happen.
Yeah.
And be honest. And if you're gonna be late, like explain that, manage that expectation, but really try not to be late. You're dating, you're going out a lot, you're doing what you need to do to meet people, and everyone needs to respect each other's time. And a big part of that is making sure if you say, hey, I'm going to be there at 7, to make sure you're not late, don't target 7, target 6:50, target 6:45.
Do you remember the guy that I went out with who was from like fucking Wisconsin or some shit?
Yeah, the guy who said a lady walks him back to the car. Yeah.
That guy, he was like an hour and a half fucking late. Granted, he was coming from like Wisconsin, but he, I don't know, like shoved in another job or something that he could have probably had skipped in order to get there on time. Mm-hmm. So he did like extra work that day. And I thought to myself, I'm immediately like, I don't care how great you are. I think it's hard to come back from something like that, because for me, I was already like, fuck this guy. I've been sitting at this fucking bar for an hour now. And by then I had like, what the fuck else am I supposed to do? I had all the margaritas. So by the time he got, as you would for an hour and a half. And so I was already tipsy by the time he got there, and he still couldn't win me over. So that's a problem.
I wish that we had a lifetime tally of all of the margaritas that you consumed on dates.
Oh my God, no way. Or just in life? Just
on dates. I don't care about in life. I'm only talking dates.
I don't know.
It's my go-to date drink.
It's the best. Tequila makes everyone like loosey-goosey and kind of relaxed. Just as a side note, the Mexican restaurant, if you guys have never been to Las Mananitas.
It's in Lakeview.
It's on Brompton Broadway. And Halstead, actually. Brompton and Halstead. And it's
on what on Halstead?
Brompton.
Oh, it's not on Broadway?
Nope, Brompton and Halstead. Brompton's like this tiny little street between like Cornelia and Addison, maybe.
Okay.
It's literally like 2 blocks long. Anyway, it's one of my favorite go-to restaurants. It is, my friends and I have been going there for like 12 years. We know the entire wait staff and the owner, and it's just like lovely. Fernando, if you go, you got to give Fernando some love. He's my boy.
Incredible.
And anyway, speaking of margaritas, have I told you the story? Like my friend Dave and I, we always go, and he's been a friend of mine since I moved to the city. So he and I have been going for 12 years. And he tallied up last year how much money we spent there. And it was something, I couldn't remember. It was something ridiculous, like almost like $4,000 in the year just at the Mexican restaurant.
Fuck yes.
And that wasn't including cash tips that we usually do. And like for Fernando's birthday, we'll give him money in a card. Like he takes care of us all the time. So
every time I've gone there, he's given me a shot of the Patron XO Cafe at the end.
I'm telling you, he takes care of us, which is why we love him and go there so much. So that alone tells you how much we love margaritas.
Yeah, we do love margaritas. We do love.
Can I get a plaque or some shit? Like that'd be cool.
I know it should be Las Mananitas brought to you by Jenna.
It really should be. Or maybe they should just sponsor us and make us margaritas while we have our guests.
We could have a margarita called the Menage-A-Pod.
Yes. We should talk to Fernando about that.
It's got to be a little bit bitter,
a
little sweet.
Intern, write that down.
A little sweet, a little bit bitter. The Menage-A-Pod.
Am I the sweet part and you're the bitter part?
I see it as the other way, but
you do?
Moving on.
How so?
So back to our list of things that you should not do on dates. Here's one for you. Demonstrate poor listening skills. If someone's talking to you, give them your full attention. Keep the fucking with your phone to a minimum. Yeah. I would argue that unless your date is like in the restroom, keep your phone in your pocket.
Wait, do you remember on our one date where you said I go to the bathroom and I came back and you were like, did you just text your friends in there? And I was like, maybe. Did you? And you were like, maybe.
Did I?
Because it was like the only time. Like you're sitting with someone for so long.
I was like, she catfished me, boys.
Fuck you. We were wasted. So it's like you're sitting there and you're like drinking with someone for hours. And we are so, as a society, dependent on our phones. I know I am. And so the minute I got up from that table, it was like I knew I'd have a million text messages from people. So I texted them back while I was in the bathroom.
Which is why our phones have more fecal matter on the screens than any other surface in the world.
I wasn't shitting. I was just
It doesn't matter, but you're in the bathroom with it. There's airborne feces everywhere.
That is so what does that even mean? Does it go into your nose? Like
it's everywhere. That's why they tell you keep your home toothbrush 6 feet away from the toilet, because every time you flush your toilet.
Yeah, mine's in a cabinet. I don't fuck around.
Smart.
That's gross.
All right, so back to our list. So pay attention. Stay off your phone. Here's a good one. Don't look sloppy. That's not to say that you need to like present yourself in a way that is not reflective of how you actually look or how you actually dress, but like try not to wear a wrinkled shirt. Try not to wear something that has like obvious staining on it. I mean, not everybody's rich. Not everyone has like a fantastic wardrobe.
Sure.
If you can't put forward your best foot on a first date, when can you?
My favorite is I couldn't even tell you who the commercial was for, but I don't know if you know what I'm talking about, but it's like two people. You don't even know what I'm gonna say. It's like two people on a date. And like the guy he looks at her and he's like, you look really beautiful. And she's like, you look really comfortable. Cause he had like a t-shirt on with, it was like all stretched out. Do you know that commercial?
No, but I wear a t-shirt with holes over both the nipples.
People cannot see you rubbing your nipples right now. That was a fantastic touch. Now they're hard. That's awkward.
They're always hard. I rock. That's like my baseline is hard nips.
But wait, speaking of sloppy, you didn't even notice that I cut my hair. Look at me like that. I cut off 3 inches. This is short for me.
3 inches?
Can you not tell?
3 inches or 6 inches?
3.
Men have a hard time determining between those two.
That is also a fair point. Fair. But that's a lot of hair. And I didn't even get a compliment. You're terrible.
I've complimented you before, so stop yourself.
I know, I'm just saying.
I just said earlier, I'll miss your face and I want selfies, so eat a dick.
Okay, that's true.
Okay.
But you never noticed that I cut my hair.
Your last haircut I noticed and called it out.
You did. That's what I'm saying.
I'm usually pretty good about that.
I know. I don't know why. You're slipping. But I had to. But
ladies,
but to your point,
if you get a haircut, I promise I will always notice.
I'll tell you, you're beautiful.
I don't mean to interrupt you right now, but I just got to tell you look, your new haircut, it's gorgeous.
Thank you. See, that would have been the right move, apparently. I don't know. Well, I did it though, because, even though this isn't a first date, since it's long distance, I got to bring my fucking A game every time I go.
Right.
So I got my nails done. I got my toes done. Keeping it fresh,
There you go.
I know.
So, all right, here are a couple more things. So this kind of folds into the not talking about your ex, but maybe don't tell your whole life story. I feel like if in the first date, and again, this is not like a playbook every time. This is a good rule to abide by. And if the situation feels right and it's organically moving in a direction, by all means go that way. But I think you're all better served on a first date by keeping the conversation mostly fun and light. Mm-hmm. If you reveal your entire life story from childhood until you're adult, you're not only going to bore your date to death potentially, but you also make yourself less of a challenge. It's like,
yeah.
I mean, you want to like leave some secrets to be found down the road. And honestly, to a lot of people, if you're too forthcoming on a first date, I think it can kind of come off as being like a little unbalanced.
Really?
Yeah.
Unbalanced?
Yes.
Huh. That's interesting. So you're saying, so how do you, I think there is a balance there of like giving the people what they want, right? And then giving them too much. So how do you know? How do you know what's like the right amount? The thing is I think people who want to be in relationships date with a purpose.
Love me, love me, love me.
Kind of, and date with a purpose to be in a relationship. So they're more willing to be open about things like that and sort of expect that in return because they're trying to sort of like interview for a position in their life. Does that make sense?
It does.
So I think they're more like, to me, it's like you're like, don't want to waste time.
I mean, how many guys do you think you've gone out with in the last 2 years?
Jesus, I have no idea.
So, I mean, I don't look at anything as wasting time. Just getting to know, I mean, what's 1 day versus 2 days?
I know. I remember when
think of how many days you just sit here watching TV.
Yeah, I remember when I was dating and we had started to become friends, and I would tell you stories and you'd be like, okay, but who cares? Because, it was like a day. It was 1 day. It was one story. Move on. It's not a big deal.
Yeah.
And you were like, think of all the other people you're going to meet. And in the grand scheme of things, it's not going to mean anything. I think when you're dating with a purpose, it feels bigger. It feels like a bigger rejection almost.
Feels like a bigger rejection not to tell your entire love story.
No, not to have a second date. So if you fuck stuff up in the first date, to not have that second date.
Right, which is why you should be following these rules to not fuck it up.
Wow.
And I think that by getting through the first date successfully, granted, successfully is a very ambiguous term. What that means to one person is going to be different from another person. Sure. But getting through that first date successfully, if you have a good time together and it doesn't get too deep, too crazy, it's just light, it's fun. You get to the end of the night, maybe you get a good night kiss. Mm-hmm. Maybe you don't. But as long as it's a good date, I think you build a lot of goodwill for what is then acceptable and appropriate going forward. Which isn't to say, okay, you made it through the first date, so on the second date, sandbag your ex and tell your entire life story. Totally. Break it in slow. But with each step, just leave a little bit of mystery. Keep control of your emotions.
Yeah.
And honestly, I would argue that if you're talking at length about your ex, maybe you're not ready to be dating anyway.
Well, there's also that. Yeah. I can't disagree with you on that one.
All right. Well, that's good because this next one is don't be argumentative. It's okay to express your opinion on things, but it's not okay to try to push somebody to agree with everything you say. They say all the time in pleasant, casual conversation, there are a couple things you shouldn't talk about, primarily politics and religion. I would argue that you should probably be on the same page about that, maybe even before your date.
Yes.
Like me personally, as a liberal atheist, I don't want to date a conservative Christian Trump supporter.
Sure.
Like I wouldn't even go on one date. Well, she wasn't a Trump supporter, thank fucking God.
How do you know?
She was not. She actually voted for Bernie Sanders. She switched. I switched her. Yeah, so that's something I think you don't have to go in depth with it, but if you're dating intentionally and you have the goal to find your person, don't have to go, like I said, don't go in depth, but just kind of be aware of how they believe. And luckily on most dating apps, it says, hey, what's your political beliefs? Conservative, liberal,
that's
moderate,
true.
And then what's your religious belief? Atheist, agnostic. Although I'll say this, even though I'm definitely an atheist, I frequently put agnostic because it's like a loophole that keeps people off my ass.
Yeah.
Because I feel...
That was Miles snoring.
I was like, either that dog is making noise or Jenna's hungry as fuck.
No, he was snoring.
Yeah, so putting agnostic is like the ultimate loophole because people still have a lot of people have a big problem with atheism.
Yeah.
And so by putting that, it kind of gives me that little loophole.
Yeah.
So don't be argumentative.
True. I mean, at the same time though, I think the point is don't be argumentative if you want a second date. If you don't give a shit, then yeah, you can totally
let them have it.
Yeah. I mean, I've had dates like that, and I've had friends who have dates like that. But then at that point, it's like the minute the same guy, the weird fucking guy from Wisconsin, who was talking about how he hates the city and all the people in the city and how they act and this, that, and whatever. And I remember and millennials, God, he was such a dick. And
fucking
people
millennials.
on their phone and that kind of thing. And I remember being a little combative with him about it because at that point I was already annoyed and knew I wasn't going to see him again. But yeah, I think if you want that second date.
Okay, another thing, you probably don't want to invite your friends. You know, we talk.
Of course you don't want to invite your friends.
People have done that. I had.
Shut the fuck up. No way.
In one of our dating stories, it wasn't an intentional inviting them, but you remember the one friend of yours who was on a bad date and they ran into all of her friends and he made a real big deal out of it. I would argue that not only don't invite them, if you can, do everything possible to make sure that there's not even an inadvertent run-in.
Sometimes you just never know. Like in her situation, she had no idea they were going to be at that bar, which was part of the funny part of the story. But
clearly, but it also sent a weird signal and made another difficult hoop they had to jump through.
Totally. God, that's not something people normally do, is it? I've never.
I don't think normally, no, but it's just a good thing to keep in mind.
Maybe young people do because it's like a
group date.
Yeah, exactly.
I went on a first date once where my best friend was going on a first date as well. We decided he and I were going to hang out beforehand, and when it was time for his date, my date was going to meet me. His date stood him up. My date showed up, and I just was like, "Hey, I didn't really want this to go that way, but." You know, my friend is here. He just got ditched. I don't feel good about leaving him here when this woman same woman ditched him on a Wednesday and a Friday. So we're just going to hang. And she was actually a really good sport about it. She's like, no, it's cool, whatever. So for 3 hours, the three of us sat at a table and he did everything on this list that if you do not want to do to get another date.
That doesn't surprise me if I'm being honest.
He talked about his entire life story. He badmouthed his ex-wife. He badmouthed most of the women he dated.
Well, he wasn't on the date, so.
No, he was fired up. And it was actually great because it removed the pressure from her and I, because we just like watched it and laughed and it was kind of funny. And then it became kind of a common like conversation point.
Yeah.
But that's the exception and not the rule.
Totally.
Also, you don't want to be rude. Mind your manners. Don't be rude to the servers. Don't be rude. Like I dated a girl last year for about 6 weeks ish, and she was rude to servers on a couple of occasions. And finally, she did it on Father's Day at a Mexican restaurant to an older man who was probably a father. And I just had this like crisis of conscience where I was just like, this dude probably has kids, is serving you fucking burritos on Father's Day, and you're talking to him like he's a piece of fucking shit. Like, it was 100% the drop dead mark. And that was 6 weeks in. Don't wait. If someone shows you their ass on the first date and they're being a dick to somebody and they're treating somebody like shit, that is not a mistake. It's not them being uncomfortable. That is an indicator of how they are and who they are.
Right. And speaking of showing their ass on a first date, no sex on a first date.
No sex. I mean, we've all done it.
Yeah, of course we have. And you know what? Here's the funny thing, though. So that is a general rule, right? It's probably the general rule. The exception to that rule is I mean, I've done it, but like my ex-husband, I think we had sex on our first date, maybe our second date. I don't remember at this point. It was a long time ago. But it obviously it turned into something, right? But that is not that is the exception to the Fair. That's the exception to the rule, though. Like,
it turned into something that crumbled over time.
I know. So I think the thing is, and we learned this from Bella, is like the longer you wait, the longer you get emotionally attached to someone, the better.
Right.
So just wait. I mean, you know.
Okay, so the flip side of things you shouldn't do, things you should do, a lot of them are just doing the opposite of what we just told you. Don't be messy. Like, dress like you care about making a solid impression. Not everybody's got a great job. Not everyone has a ton of money, but you can wear clean, neat clothing. You can make sure you've brushed your teeth. You've washed your hair. You're presenting like...
If I went on a date with someone who didn't brush their teeth,
I guarantee you there are people out there that are doing that.
That is disgusting.
Yeah. No judgment here. Just if you want to make an impression...
1,000% judgment.
I judge no one.
Oh, I do. Really? You don't judge people?
Never. Yeah. I judge you constantly because you are a wreck. Just kidding.
Wow.
I meant to say the worst, but the wreck came out. They both begin with W.
Is it because internally that's what you really truly feel?
No.
And the words came out of your mouth just unintentionally.
That you're the worst? That you're the worst wreck?
I'm a wreck.
Wait.
That's a lie.
You're the worst, but you're like the best worst?
I don't even know what that means. Nice try to get.
It's like a bratwurst.
Nice try.
It's sausage. Nice. We're in Chicago, which is like the land of sausages.
Nice try.
So it's like the best worst.
No. Nice try.
I tried. I gave it a good effort.
Get out of my house.
Don't be on your phone. Instead, pay attention. Be engaged. Don't be messy. Don't be rude to a server. Try to be polite. Try to here's one. Don't stiff your waiter. You should probably make sure you're tipping 20%.
Oh, I always look at that, by the way.
Of course you do.
If somebody doesn't let me pay, then I always look and see what they paid.
I'm fucking making you pay if you want to date with me.
And then I get like really uncomfortable because like we discussed last week, I like to take people to the same places so that I'm comfortable. So like, you know, there's waiters and waitresses there that you know, and if the other person's paying and they're being fucking stingy, that's embarrassing. So sometimes I've been known to like slip them cash on my way to the bathroom, or the next time I go with friends or whatever.
Quid pro quo in exchange for sexual favors?
No, ew.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's not that kind of party. There are no like glory holes around here.
It's always that kind of party.
No. So then like I'll go with friends another time and then just give them extra money so they make up for it.
There you go. I think the key takeaway here is that every successful date requires at least some pre-date planning, a little bit of preparation, you know, making sure that you have an idea where you're going to go, what the night's going to look like. Yeah, I mean, you can be flexible, but just have an idea. Put in some effort. Show to your prospective second date that you're a thoughtful person, that you're kind, that you're not a scumbag or a piece of shit.
Yeah.
And if you are a scumbag or a piece of shit, it's not that hard to hide it for a date or two.
That is true. You're so good at doing that.
Whatever.
Oh,
I'm delightful and many people love me.
Burn.
I think that is the long and short of it. You guys are probably noticing this is a little bit of a shorter episode. That is our present to you. You can get in and out in under 50 minutes, and it's funny that 50 minutes is a short episode for us.
I know.
Anything else, Jenna, from you?
No, I think we need to wrap this up because I got to go pack.
Go pack. All right, guys. Once again, thank you to everyone for listening. Thank you for coming back and listening to our podcast week after week after week.
Yeah, guys,
Menage-A-Pod, we take over the fucking world. Remember, submit your ghosting stories, review the podcast, do all the things for the contest. We have the ticket codes to give you your tickets for T-Box 2019. Visit us on Instagram at Menage-A-Podcast, where you will find our link tree that includes links to our Facebook group, Twitter account, website, top episodes, and more. Quick thank you to you, Jenna. I love you.
Oh, thanks.
Can I tell you something?
Do I look beautiful?
Your hair.
Oh, thank you.
I love it. God,
Works
you are
every time.
Goddamn dream.
I try, she says as she flutters her eyelashes.
You have pretty eyelashes too.
Thank you.
See, I'm really good at this, guys. Wait, hold on. Sophia, this is for you.
I am not going to sleep with you, TJ.
Jenna.
Take it down.
Your eyelashes are so long and beautiful.
Slow.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
You look fantastic today.
So good.
I am the luckiest man ever that I get to do this while staring at your gorgeous face.
I know you're making jokes right now, but I'm going to agree with that statement. You are the luckiest fucking son of a bitch.
All right, guys. Fuck that. And of course, good luck out there. Bye.
Bye, guys.